Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the As a Woman podcast, an initiative by Yebetumi. We are still on conversations on solidarity against sexual and gender-based violence, an initiative supported by the African Women's Development Fund. We are going to go to the fundamentals. When we talk about violence against women, a lot of it is situated in the lack of understanding of consent. Today, I have Frances Armah, who is the co-founder and executive director of Youth Community. Youth Community is a youth development organization, youth-led, youth-focused. And I also have with me once again, Michaella Gyatsen. She is a co-director at Drama Queens. She's a feminist activist.
Yeah, I know Drama Queens.
Oko is excited. I
I
don't know
love
why.
Drama Queens.
Drama Queens is a Pan-African feminist non-governmental organization and non-profit as well. They do a lot of work on consent and bodily autonomy. They organize consent workshops for young people, for youth, for children in schools, for adults, mainly for everyone. And I've been in the workshops a couple of times, and they are always very educative and very enlightening. And so, happy to have you with me, Michaella, and
we're happy to be here.
We are happy to be here. And I'm happy to be with the Drama Queen.
Yay. Is there anything you would like to say about yourselves, about your work, about today's topic before we get into it?
Well, I'm very excited to even be part of this discussion, because usually when we go into communities to speak to these children on issues of abuse and violence, one of the bases is consent and body autonomy. And for teenagers around 10, 9, 12, 13, it's making them understand, using simple language and scenarios to let them understand what it means, because they are taught to believe that they are children. They are supposed to be seen and not to be heard. And so even when somebody touches them inappropriately and they are not comfortable in all of these things, a lot of them struggle how to, stand on their feet and, express themselves that they are not comfortable. And so I'm very, very excited. And of course, anywhere Drama Queen is, I'm very excited, because their Drama Queens are so good with consent and body autonomy and all the relating issues that happens to it. So yes, that is why issues of these are not sometimes exciting because of the impact on girls and women and all of that. But with Drama Queens in the picture, that's why you see that I'm very excited.
Today is a Drama Queens Appreciation Day. Let's just say that.
Yay!
Michael.
Okay, so my name is Michaella. I work with Drama Queens. All of the work that we do is centered on starting from ending at surrounding consent and bodily autonomy. You're just very passionate about making sure that information around consent and the ability to express and identify consent is shared with as many people as possible, and that as many people as possible are able to identify cues of consent, but also to identify them and respect them. One thing that's very definite and just definite about our work with consent is that we take a very before it happens approach, which is different from what the general conversation around sex education is in Ghana, which is very victim blaming. It's very who told you to go there. So I'm very excited about this conversation.
Thank you. So we are taking a more preventive approach rather than a curative approach. Let's piggyback on that and talk about how consent and body autonomy looks like.
Debbie.
Michaella?
Feel free to talk about what consent really is, how it looks like, what bodily autonomy is, how it looks like.
Consent is not an abstract thing. Consent is very simple. Consent, we like to talk of consent about saying no, which is true. That's very accurate. But consent is also being able to say yes. It's being able to identify when I want to say no and when I want to say yes. It's being able to know that I said no to one thing, but I'm saying yes to another. And that's always very important. Like saying no is very, very good. But then empowering people to be able to say yes and to request and ask for what they want is just as important. Because when you're able to identify what you want and express that, you're also able to identify what you don't want and express that as well. And have people respect that. Right?
And like, as basic as this may sound, it starts from childhood. Like when sometimes I know there are certain homes that you even eat what is available. But the moment some children have the opportunity for their parents to ask, what would you like to eat today? And then they are able to express, I want this, I want that. I said yes to porridge yesterday. Today, I want kinky or I want it. It's such an empowering thing when you are able to engage someone, listen to them and ask them what they are comfortable, what they want. Do they agree to this? Do they not? And all of that. And it also shows you that the fact that somebody said yes and they are comfortable with something in the morning, they may not say the same thing in the afternoon or another time. And once, for me, like I said, it starts with childhood. So once you are able to engage people as they grow from infancy and all of that, naturally they are able to they are able to express themselves, what they want, what they are comfortable with, what they do not like. So sometimes you realize in some Ghanaian communities, when there is a child who is very firm on what they want, what they do not want, what they don't like and everything, they will say, we are a penny or something. They start giving you taglines and all of that.
That child.
Exactly. And that is to somewhat beat those because
Teach into confirmation.
exactly into the child that you are, and you are supposed to be seen and not to be heard and not to express all of these important things. But you can bear with me that if that child is shame into confirmation, when you grow, you become timid. You are in a very progressive work situation and you are dealing with issues, but you cannot express yourself on what you want, what you are comfortable with, what you are not, and all of that. And it is high time, as a developing country with the kind of issues we are facing, it is also high time we realize how we can really, especially for our young people, because whether we like it or not, all the development, technology, innovation, everything coming, it is the young people who are more vexed and they have the energies and everything to tap into it, to profess solutions that we want as a country. And so are we shaming them into conforming so that when it's time to express all of the things that they want to do to help the society, they would be timid? It's important we think about all of these things. And there are several situations that this plays out, and I'm sure we'll delve into it.
An example of, like, whenever we do our sessions, especially with much younger children or with just like young people in general, is to use a scenario of a water bottle to ask, if you have a water bottle and someone touches it, would you be happy? Right? And so when you have, like, I should just tell the children this, like, when you have a water bottle and someone touches it, you don't want them to touch it, tell them you don't want that. By setting instances and scenarios and giving people the opportunity to assert their bodily autonomy and consent outside of sexual relationships, you give them enough confidence to do the same thing within sexual and amorous relationships. And usually that's where the most damage, when consent is not being respected, happens.
Yeah. Let's do a quick bucket list. What is consent and what is not? But before that, let's look at bodily autonomy. It sounds like a big word. A big phrase. And we need people to understand what bodily autonomy is. So very quickly, let's first look at what bodily autonomy is.
It's basically, this is my body, it is for me. I will do what I want with it. It comes, like, when you think of the word autonomy, which is like a governance of self. So autonomy is basically the ability to govern self. And then the body is, of course, body. So being able to take decisions and make decisions about your own body, because first and foremost, it's yours. It's really a quick answer, but I just wanted to add that the reason why it's even a thing in the first place is that, especially with children and with girls, we do not teach them or we do not raise them to believe that their bodies are theirs. So their bodies and their sense of self is, you're your father's child, you're your mother's child, you're your brother's sister, you're your husband's wife, you're your children's mother. So your body is never really yours. But then it is, because at the end of the day, it's the one that you live in.
Exactly.
And it sets a very fertile ground for people to be abused, oppressed, and all of that. Because as a child, I am of my mother's, I am of my father's. My uncle is nice to me, so everything I do belongs to him or her, and all of these things. And so, and of course, when you look at domestic violence and all the abuse, molestation, everything, a lot of them happens with close relations.
Yeah.
Even if the person is not your family member, it's still somebody around the community. So the proximity is very close. And so once, and especially coming back from the point I made earlier, when we are also shaming children into conforming, into being a child and not vibrantly expressing themselves and all of that, all these things culminates into oppression. So the child is extremely uncomfortable with what the auntie is doing or what the old parents may be doing, but they cannot express it.
Yeah.
And so how does this child imagine growing into an adult and how it will affect their personal life? You see catcalls on the roadside. Sometimes even if like you can't even freely express yourself, if you want to just have a dance.
Yeah.
You
Okay, let's get into that because that's actually my next question. What is the relationship between consent and body autonomy and violence against women?
So, for example, consent is to agree that yes, I want this. Yes, I'm comfortable with it. Or no, I don't like this. I'm allergic to this. I have a reaction. I cannot. That expression and you being comfortable that this and saying it. And bodily autonomy is you having that decision to decide what happens to my body. I don't want to go into the certain details. But for example, I am very, of course, we're all sexual beings, but I discovered about how sensitive my nipple is. And I experimented with myself. I realized, oh, this would be very nice in a sexual activity.
Yeah.
Because of that journey of experimenting and knowing that I like it, I have that confidence that if I'm engaged in any form of sexual activity, yes, I'm very comfortable around my nipple. You can touch it. But maybe I have social anxiety. So if I am dancing, I don't want to be held or touched or, some part of I am not comfortable. And so even though you may be involved with me in any sexual activity and I am comfortable with touching my nipples and everything, that does not mean that when I'm dancing outside because of my anxiety issues, you should just come hold my hand because I am not comfortable. But I can express it and tell you that no, I know I'm dancing outside, but I don't want to be touched or held in a certain way. Exactly. Now, if someone is empowered, then they can say yes, they can say no, and they know what they are comfortable with, how they want to treat their own bodies. They know it is for them and all of that. Less likely, because violence may still happen, but because they know how they have made a decision that their body is for them. Violence is it can be in any form. It could be even verbal. But once you are empowered and you decide that this skirt is what I'm wearing today, I feel very good in it. It's my body, and I have decided. Maybe when you take a walk down the area, you hear people talking and all of that. But because you are empowered, it does not necessarily prevent them from doing that. But because you are empowered, you know that this is your decision and all of that. You may have maybe a strong foundation against you. You may not even listen to them. But for someone who, of course, may feel good to express themselves in a certain outfit, but they are not strong, like they really do not understand that it is their body, they are making the decision and they want to feel comfortable and express themselves in it. And they don't have any form of basis or understand or even empowerment about these things. And they walk down the street and they hear somebody's confidence could just be like dead.
Okay, let me ask you this as a man. Do you think that if men understood consent law, if they understood consent better, and if they practiced consent and respected women's bodily autonomy, there would be less cases of violence against women?
Yes, I think so, because see, our society, when you normalize something, they don't even see that it is wrong. That is the first thing. But you even ask yourself, for a lot of guys who may not really respect the consent of women and all of this discrimination abuse, you ask why in a lot of cases how do I explain it? They are usually overprotective over their own sisters from their own friends. Now, once you understand, you will be able to have conversations with your own colleagues as men or as boys. Because, between us, we listen to each other, we educate, we engage, we help each other. So once you're able to do that, you create a safer environment for your own sister, your mother, anyone, you understand? But because you contribute to it, so, and like whatever you contribute to, you definitely face the consequences, whether directly or indirectly, because no man would want their daughter. And for a lot of strong women, feminists and everything, when you go when you dig deep, you realize that their fathers are a strong foundation to their successes in standing on their feet, in fighting for women's rights and all of that. That is because these men understand. So you see, the more we the men educate ourselves and engage in these things, sometimes I know people who have to grow to a certain level and even have their own children, then they go through a certain journeys and experience, then they understand some of the actions they took when they were young and they even regret. But should we wait till then before we learn our lessons? Sometimes the damage has been caused to several girls before you grow to the journey of even becoming a father to understand. We should not get to that level.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before you ask another question, but I'll try and keep this very simple. The initial one about the relationship between consent, bodily autonomy,
And
and
violence.
And Oko has talked a lot about how as women or as women, because again, women are the biggest statistics of people that experience any kind of gender-based violence or any violence at all.
Yeah.
How knowing these things and how it's helpful for you. But then also the relationship is just as important on the other side as well. If people just generally, but then if men who are also the statistically highest number of perpetrators understand that this person has the ultimate decision on what she wants to do with her body, then they would have to respect that. And then that would make the amount of violence that they oftentimes inadvertently cause lesser, right? Because there's no excuse for violence, but then a lot of the reasons, and excuse and reasons are very, very different. Why a lot of violence has been perpetrated against women is because men just think it is their decision to make what can happen to another person's body. And so when you realize that it's, at the end of the day, it is the sole responsibility and the sole decision of whoever is within that body, whether they want to give birth, whether they want to abort their children, whether they want to have sex on a tree, have sex under a tree, it's only their decision to make, and you must understand that. And then violence gets reduced. But then your question.
Just before the question, when men also understand consent and body autonomy, they are a lot of men are in certain key positions that they can change things. For example,
better policies.
For example, for some of the enablers of these things, for example, marriage. When a woman is married, on sometimes some of our tradition, like the notion is that the man owns the woman because he paid bride price and everything. There are men who have children, adult children who are married, because they understand some of these things. They don't even take money or cash. So they even advise their children, I want to receive you as I don't really want to receive your corpse. And you die through abuse and everything. Whatever happens, I am not taking any form of money, anything, just because you are getting married. So I am making, like this is a conscious decision a man is making to make sure that the daughter is protected and she believes in herself. Whatever decisions she makes with her body, she would not arrive back in the house as a corpse. And these are very important decisions, but it starts with men understanding and identifying the enablers of these things, and then they then work to overcome them.
Another thing about a relationship is that it's also about systems. If the
True.
systems that we live within and live with are aware or more cognizant of the fact that they are all related, then the systems can also work to work against violence. So then the police, when you report a case to the police, they're not going to demand that you go and take tests, and very invasive tests, by the way, to prove that you've been violated. And that hospitals and the medical system understands, like, if you're having a fibroid case and you go to the hospital and you need to have your womb taken out or something, they don't ask you questions like, what did your husband say? So,
I'm so glad you mentioned this, because I experienced it. And even as a feminist who hears about these issues, I was still shocked that this doctor would ask me to bring my boyfriend to have a discussion about my own medical procedure that I'm discussing with you. He said, yeah, can you bring in your boyfriend just so we know that you're both on the same page? Something about my body. You need my boyfriend. And so, it also goes to show how even some of us most progressive women are not immune to some of these
because
abuses.
it's a systemic thing. There's only so much knowing and telling the next person can do, and the systems that are supposed to hold us don't.
And that's one of the myths, because sometimes people think the higher educated a woman is, it prevents her. She's, but it does not.
It doesn't.
Because the issues happen everywhere, so ingrained in the system that everywhere you go, so far as you are of a specific gender or a certain gender, these issues you definitely lead them on the way.
I mean, patriarchy is very systemic and structural, so nobody is immune to it. This is my absolute favorite part of this discussion: pop culture. I find that it's a big enabler of violence against women. What we've normalized, what we think is okay. Let's get into how pop culture promotes or signs off on violence against women.
I'm so ready to go. I'm so ready to go. From the music, from the music videos, from the billboards, from the news, from what the newscasters wear. All of it is popular culture. Pop culture is basically popular culture. Whatever is popular at the moment. And unfortunately, for something to get to pop culture status, it needs to have a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And people would do, on one hand, people would but would do a lot to get to the pinnacle of that. But then with very little regard for how they get there and what they are parroting. There's a lot of parroting going on. And that's how comedy becomes popular culture in the first place. But then the music we listen to, the films we watch, the trailers, the fashion shows, the news. And the news one is funny for me because usually when we talk about pop culture, we don't talk about the factual things or the things we think of entertainment. But the news is basically entertainment. Like it's on the TV every day at 7, on the radio every day at 3. On certain stations, it's like 6 times a day. There's news reporting, and you have the newscasters reporting cases of sexual violence and joking about it. Reporting cases of period poverty and joking about it. Reporting cases of like defilement, and then saying stuff like, "Hey, why would you say that?" Because then you're normalizing it. And like
there was one I don't mean to cut you. There was one that was so popular, and I still can't get it out of my mind. It's been years. Somebody was raped, and the newscaster who was doing it in a local language said, "And or chain a pen drive, and or the shame, or download the." You're talking about rape like this.
The funny part of this is the ethics of the job of that newscaster is not to even go near, just report the case as it is, take the child's identity and everything that points to the survivor out of it and go straight. And there are ethics to the job. And so once, on one hand, you look at how unethical and unprofessional this person is, but the other one too is, sometimes I was in a church one time and similar thing, everybody was laughing. Somebody's child has been defiled. This is not a laughing matter. And I'm not parent to any child, but to listen, what a 9-year-old would have gone through, it is nothing to laugh about. And so sometimes I think, like you said, systems, if the employer of this journalist, they are able to sanction them.
There's a producer in the room. There's a sound mixer. There's all of those things.
And the integrity of the owners of such houses also comes into disrepute, because what kind of information are you also putting out there?
We've normalized these so much that it doesn't even affect their reputation.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Michaella, please continue.
When we talk about systems, it's a system. Ghanaian culture, it's more culture than system. But Ghanaian culture always wants to laugh. And some things are just not funny. But then in a bid for content creators to meet that demand of Ghanaian culture, we want to make everything as close to a joke as possible. So we know that this is very serious, but then again, and this is where bodily autonomy comes. This is where bodily autonomy comes in, because why does a radio station think it's their job to police how someone is going to receive news? Your job is to report the news. Whether the person cries about it or laughs about it should not be your business, to be honest. But then we are so consumed with keeping everything on a light note, and it's very bothersome. And that influences the kind of content that we create. So then you have a lot of, like, Ghanaian TikTok is filled with things that there's lots of men caricaturing as women, only to say derogatory things. So why is it that when you want to make a derogatory joke, you don't say it's wearing men clothes? Right? Why? There's a lot of videos and content where rape culture is being normalized, where the plot of the skits is that somebody is being raped because you took someone else on a date, and because and that is what we mean by popular
like
culture.
buy somebody dinner. Like I bought you dinner, she didn't want to go home with me, so like
there's popular songs. There's this song that it's a Saturday song.
Abua Kunkontiba.
Not even that one. When we started, I was going to sing that song, but not even that one's there. There's a Saturday song. Oh, Julia, there's lots of songs because I make a conscious effort to not support any of these things, so I can't even remember it now. But then lyrics like if I don't know if I can even say this on the
please
program,
do. It's a song
if
that
she knows, if I can't even speak for it, if she no go suck, who go pay for her wig a handbag, right? Like and you have 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds actively singing this, right? So they are singing it, and then when they are 12 and 13 and start dating, they expect that they should give sexual favors to people as a currency in their relationships, whether they want to do these sexual favors or not. Which also means that when they get to the point where they start desiring these things, it holds a different kind of merit because it has been conceptualized as currency, and it's not.
Yeah.
So it's very nuanced.
And these things are very powerful, Abena.
Oh yeah. Okay, before you come in, I actually want to also highlight this Abua Kunkontiba song.
Yes, that one.
It's basically promotes pedophilia. In the song, a boy is saying catch them young. So like
first off in the song, he's likening women to frogs.
To frogs.
First one. Likening them to tadpoles, which are like the
so the girls are the tadpoles.
Yes.
And then when they become a frog, so that start dating them. So he's basically promoting grooming, pedophilia,
but also owning people's bodies, like a lack of body ownership.
Defilement.
Obenina yekese
Daniel Poncheni. Yeah, so she's going to go
that.
I was in a forum that was organized by the second lady, and Samini was featured on the song, and so I
think I remember this.
Yes, and I raised my hand and I asked him that the forum was about sexual and gender-based violence.
I remember,
and I said, Samini, you were featured on this song, and this song promotes pedophilia, and you are now an ambassador. What do you have to say about this? And then he said, well, it's something he did when he was younger. He didn't know better, and he regrets it. And he really, this isn't who he is anymore. He has learned, he has grown. But this song still plays on our airwaves. It plays on our airwaves, and we listen to it. And it's crazy. I've been signaled that we are out of time. And so we will do our last round of discussion. How do we change this?
Okay.
Where do we, and in wrapping up on that, you could also mention, some of the myths and misconceptions and, address those.
So, for example, all the other issues that we've discussed, especially with pop culture, there is a strong element of persuasion and social influence. Because the more these songs keeps playing on the principle of repetition, it sticks easier. Once it sticks to the people, it transforms their attitude as it is to be normal. And it's already popular. So then you do it along. And so, meanwhile, this attitude, it takes a lot of work to change these attitudes. So pop culture is making it very easy. Catchy songs, catchy news, funny stuff.
Very
that is on the airwaves, on social media, is being repeated every day. Then it sticks. It sticks, it transforms into an attitude, it's normalized, and then people get abused and all of that. See the transition process. And so to change this, you have to then invest in a lot of time, training, build systems to respond to the issues that are happening, spend a lot of resources in educating people, not just any form of education, but you educate them in the same way pop culture had influenced them over the years, they will even see the need to change. And then, where there are this music already out there, work with the systems available. Do not play them anymore. And maybe host some sort of workshops for these musicians, because sometimes you listen to Ghanaian music and they're about stories about Ghana's gold, like those things. We are losing all of these things. Doesn't mean our creatives cannot create content that is still creative and educative and still fun for us to enjoy. What is happening? So all of these things are important. And of course, I mentioned one misconception as that sometimes people think the more educated you are immune to violence. You are not. And Children, sometimes these things, some people think children are much younger. We shouldn't start the conversations with them. But they watch cartoons. They see how a cartoon character will grab another cartoon character and kiss without asking any permission. And so when it happens to them in school, they think it's normal. It is not. We need to start conversations. If somebody touches you and you're uncomfortable, express it. If you need something, say it. You are not saying anything bad. That is how we can groom the next generation to make sure they contribute positive to society. Because if we don't, we are raising a group of young adults that will not even be able to do the things and lead the solutions we need for the country.
Right.
Oftentimes when we ask ourselves, what can we do? What do we fix? We want to find and look for new solutions. And that's good. But then sometimes we are missing foundations that have already been laid.
Yeah.
Ghana has a lot of problems, but we also have a lot of systems, funnily enough. We have a lot of policies and offices that just don't work. And so on a national concerted level, that is like a very good place to start, to have our policies work, to have our systems work. There's multiple offices and outfits that are set to monitor what is on our radios and on our TVs and how the process of like training to make content is a process, and it has the systems put in place. We just don't utilize them. So that's something to do. But on an individual level as well, we often think that, I'm just one person. But your single play of a song is immense. Your single, like the one time that you watch a video is contributing to the algorithm. Because you watch a video, the algorithm is going to send it to the next person.
Exactly.
So if you know something is not it, don't watch it, block it, report it. Because these, like, in as much as the Ghanaian systems don't work, 2024 Adaroma, we live in a system or in a time where we are by fire by force connected to other systems that can't work.
Yeah.
And so if our local ones aren't working, we can still very easily tap into the systems that already work. So report the song, report it on Spotify, report it on Boomplay, report it on TikTok. If you report it, enough is one person, a second person, a third person, enough people report it, it's going to get flagged. There's going to be an investigation into why. Right? But it's also about things like just don't play it at your party. Tell the DJ that's me, I don't want to hear this song again.
Exactly.
If you have children, like monitor what they watch as much as you can. It's not easy, but it's also not an absolutely lost cause. And then say yes when you want to say when you want something, say yes. Because if you're able to say yes, when you feel no, it's easier to get across, right? Because it's not always easy. Like there's a fight or flight response, and that's like another myth as well, that people be like, oh, she didn't shout, so then she must have wanted it. There's a lot of different reactions to violent or threatening situations. And what is threatening is also very relative to the people, the person, the people's upbringing, their history, their context. But then if we are able to say yes and clearly express the things that we want, we are able to identify for ourselves the things that we don't want, but then we are also able to more clearly express ourselves, even without words, when we don't want other things.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Michaella, and thank you, Okos, for your very insightful perspectives. We've been talking about consent and bodily autonomy. This episode, we took it down to the ground level, bringing it up to some of the very fundamental or foundational issues that breed violence against women. We've been talking about how we should raise our children better, both boys and girls, especially for boys. We know that power dynamics is one of the biggest things that contributes to violence against women. Teach your boys that women's bodies are theirs. Women aren't only important because of their proximity to them as men. Women are their own people. Their bodies are theirs to decide what to do with. If she doesn't want an abortion, you cannot force her to get an abortion. If she wants an abortion, you cannot force her to not get an abortion. The fact that you've married a woman and paid her bride price doesn't mean you own her. The fact that a woman is wearing a short dress doesn't mean you have a right to rape her or catcall her or call her a shawu, whatever, very derogatory things a lot of men have been doing to women because of how they perceive women or their sense of entitlement or sense of power over women. Once again, this has been the As a Woman podcast, an initiative of Yebe to Me. This season is on solidarity against sexual and gender-based violence. My name has been Abena Benewaa. So I've been speaking with Michaella Gyatsen from Drama Queens and Francis Oko Armah from Youth Community. Interact with us on our socials. Catch us on Instagram on @yebetumi, on X at yebetumigh, and learn more about us on our website www.yebetumi.org. Till we bring you another episode, it's bye.
Thank you.